and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures That Outperform. We are on episode 7 of an absolutely fabulous series on jerks at work. Every company has these people. As you move around through your career, you're going to run into a lot of these folks. And this one today, I've seen just so many of these, and they come in different forms, but the needy, woe is me coworker. We're going to dig into this today and see who are these people and how do you really handle them. Now, we have a lot of different difficult workplace jerks that we're going to be covering. So you can see the list right here. We've even talked about adding a couple of others that we've run into. Well, we'll see, but it's a really good, rich episode. And this is a reference for you. As you run into people who are jerks at work, find the episode and you're going to learn how to really deal with them and what not to do, which is very important. And so, Tara, tell us about this needy, woe is me coworker. Who are these people?
Yeah, these folks are the ones that they are in this chronic victim mindset. Everything is a problem. Everything is just, I can't do it. They have this very negative mindset. They amplify the problems. And as you try to help them work through solutions, they really don't want to hear it because they're so focused on the problem that sometimes they really can't even hear you. They're just stuck in this place of it's a chronic problem. They're always the victim. They don't just have problems. Everybody once in a while has problems, but this is that person that always needs a rescuer. They always need somebody to support them. They always are looking for emotional support. And most of the time it's because they've been in this place of distress and helplessness where they just have not gained that dependence. They're not independent at all. They have been just stuck in this place where they always need assistance and they feel like they can't do anything. They really have this learned helplessness where they're not just living with a bad day or having a bad day. They're living with that ongoing negativity. It's constant. It's never where they can just be independent on their own, doing things for themselves. They kind of are just incapable of doing that.
Yeah, their internal confidence never formed, most likely because of the way
Yeah,
they were brought up. Maybe they had an approval dependent upbringing, but they're always seeking reassurance because they never had the confidence to do stuff. And actually,
yeah,
that creates this emotional neediness. And you, as a coworker, become a way for them to satisfy that emotional need. So they're going to look for help and support on just about everything because it feels good.
yeah,
And they had probably overprotective parents, train them that somebody's going to step in when things are tough. And the mom and dad stepped in and created this problem.
yeah.
They're not looking for a solution from you, really. They just want that emotional relief, and
They
that's what
want
they
you to
get out of it.
solve the
So
problem for them. Their
yeah,
parents really train them as kids to depend on them for every little need, to do everything for them. The parents were constantly doing things for them and never made the child take ownership and do things for himself. And so as they grew up, they started to feel like, oh, that's
yeah,
how the world works. Everybody is going to do things for me. They're going to figure things out for me. And the parents really just have created this needy child that has grown
yeah.
into this adult that's still very needy.
Yeah, I mean, they may have only gotten affection from their parents when the parents helped them. They may have gotten no other affection. And
Yeah,
so this became a way for them to get affection from their parents. But unfortunately, this is an ingrained need and they're not going to outgrow it. And these are very difficult folks to work with, quite honestly.
yeah,
And so, there are ways to spot them. Uh, you know, they need help no matter what, right? Every week, it doesn't even have to be an emergency. It could be just be like, hey, I need help with this. I'm not sure how to approach this. They want that emotional reassurance or support. It's going to make them feel good. Um, Same problems all the time. They're not really looking for the solution. They're just looking for emotional support. And so that help seeking behavior is there, and they don't reject the solutions. They just want more of that emotional support,
yeah,
and that's really what they're getting out of it.
yeah. That helpless language you hear a lot. I can't, it's impossible. I don't know what to do. They're constantly asking for help on the same thing over and over again. It's always the same problems, same things over and over again, no movement. Regardless of how many times you give them a solution, you give them suggestions, they're still coming back again and again and again.
Yeah. And we talked on other episodes over time about self-handicapping, which is predicting you're not going to get it done on time or you're not going to fully be able to do it. That's a somewhat different thing. They could use that tactic, but those people may actually do work, but if they feel like, in this case, I'm gonna let them know in advance that I might not get it done, they'll go try, right?
Yeah.
They're a different animal. And so these folks really are satisfying an endless emotional need. And that's what's going on here. And, I've worked with them and quite a few of them. And I'll tell you, the worst one ever was one of these folks who was not just emotionally needy, but also pretty stupid. And even after you tried to give them the stuff, they'd come back constantly going, I didn't understand that. And it wasn't just emotional needy. It was a combination of two things. They were actually pretty dumb. Let's talk about handling them. I'd make one comment here, Tara, which is I never had an emotional needy boss across all the years in corporate working in
Yeah,
companies.
me either.
Yeah, I think they rarely get promoted, but if you're a subordinate for one of these, that would be a real interesting challenge, right? I think you want to really work with that type of person by getting as many clarifying questions as you can.
Yeah.
Don't rescue them, right? Set boundaries, document miscommitments, not moods. I think this is good. You want to just stay focused on the work and not be there to let them sponge off you. I mean, I would say that's the key thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're coworkers, you want to offer empathy. You don't want to just write them off right away, but you really do want to quickly move to solutions. You want to pivot. You don't want to stay in that woe is me space with them. You want to understand and offer some compassion, but let's move towards solutions. And you don't want to be their emotional processing center. That's just going to wear you out. Always
Yeah.
follow up with them and ask them what's their next step. Help them take responsibility. You can share the load, but don't do it for them completely. Make them get involved and really do some part of it. They are capable of learning. They just have not done it over the years. And somebody has to be calm and really help them solve the problem. But you'll have to take their hand and make them do it because they're kind of conditioned now to feel like they need that support and they can't do it on their own.
And if you're a boss, look, you're not going to change them, right? If I always get that quote, which is once you try to, realize how difficult it is for you to change, how impossible it is to change somebody else. Behavior change is complicated. And so for this individual, look, you're a boss. It's a performance issue. This is all about performance. It's holding them accountable. If they come in with issues, say, hey, how could you do that? Don't give them the answer. How could you do that? How would you solve that? Okay, well, that's a good idea. Come back to me with your approach and how you're going to do that, how that's going to work. Don't help with the plan, make them do it. And if, they can't do the work, then they don't belong there. That's the end of the day, how that works out. But you want them to coach them so that they become as self-sufficient as possible. You're going to have to put up with some neediness. It's just there. It's not going away. And I think that's very clear. You're not gonna take this and turn them into somebody they aren't. This is who they
Right.
are. So it's controlling the amount of neediness, and that's as a boss, make it all about performance. So let's look at what not to do, Tara. What do you think here?
Yeah. Don't be their rescuer. That's what they want. They want somebody to just listen to them, let them complain and explain how they can't. And they want somebody to be their therapist and the rescuer. And you really can't get sucked into that role because, again, it's just going to wear you out. After a while, you're going to get tired and you're not going to want to do it long term. So don't start it. You don't want to just do their work for them because it's going to be something that you have to continue to do. You really do have to make them take ownership. So don't argue with them saying, if you think you've got it bad, listen to my story, and try to get into
Yeah.
that game with them of, who's got it the worst. My life is harder. You really don't want to play that game with them because they're not going to come out of that negative headspace. You don't want to let the deadline slide because they're stressed. You don't want to vent about them instead of managing the pattern. You really do want to try to put your best foot forward in terms of being a support to help them and having compassion, but don't try to rescue. Don't try to be their therapist. Don't do the work for them. Don't take their side. Help them and hold them accountable.
Yeah, early in my career, talking about coworkers here, I knew this one system really well. I was a programmer on it, knew everything about certain parts of the system, and one of these needy people got hired onto the team. And the first time came over and said, "Oh, I heard you know this. Where do you think I should insert this code?" I said, "Hey, sit down. Let me show you." We basically did it together. Like next day, they're back at my office. And I'm like, "Well, you can look over here, quickly help them again." Third time, I'm like, "Hey, listen, I got work to do." I realized what was going on, but they'll keep coming forever
Yeah.
because that feels good to them to get that kind of help, right? It solves that lack of confidence issue. And so don't do the work for them. And listen, don't totally avoid them. Give them advice if you can. Say, hey, look, you got to come up with a plan. How you're going to do it? How do you think you could do it? You can act kind of the role of the coach as the coworker, but don't do their work, whatever you do, and don't compete in the misery, and don't start gossiping about them to everybody else, because that's only going to make it worse. Be
Yeah.
neutral, don't do their job, and don't be a negative person behind their back. You don't talk behind people's back, period, ever. And so that's that.
Yeah. And then you don't want to just excuse them, right? So if you're the manager, you don't want to just say that's just how they are. Just leave them alone, let them be, don't give them lower standards than
Oh,
everybody
never.
else.
Then everybody sees it right away that they're getting away without having to do the job. That's a disaster.
Yes, don't overfunction for them on their behalf. You want to really hold them accountable, make them take and own their own piece of the work. You don't want to remove that accountability from them. They really do have to be accountable if they're going to be a functioning person on the team. And you don't want to let that one person's distress set the whole team's tone. So now everybody is frustrated. Everybody is, in this woe is me space because of that one person. They all feel drained because of that one person.
Yeah. And eventually you got to confront them head on and say, hey, look, you're accountable. We had a subordinate, and this was at Merrill Lynch years ago, took over a system. Everything had to run before the market opened in the morning. All the systems had to be done, updated, everybody's account balance so they could trade, do whatever. This person, had been basically helicoptered by his mom the whole time in his life. And a new version of the system went in first night, I don't know, 1 a.m. He gets a call from the area that handled blowups in the data center. It was called SWAT. They called to get it fixed, right? And they would take action, but they needed approval and direction. So gets called 1 a.m, answers, blah, blah, blah. Next night, same problem. Gets a call around 1:30. Boom. Third night, same problem. The mother picks up the phone. Believe it or not, the mother answers and says, why do you people keep calling at 1 a.m? He needs his sleep. And they're like, miss, look, there's billions and billions of dollars in these systems. That's the job. He's got to get on the phone. He's got to get this fixed. He's the one assigned to it. It's his application. And these people are real in their trouble, these helicopter parents. Yeah. I've seen it. And so these people cause a lot of collateral damage. If you don't hold them accountable and say, look, you got to get it done. If you can't get it done, you can't be here. Because they will burn everybody out with that. They create a lot of emotional exhaustion. They create tension on the team. They do create, unfortunately, a lot of negative gossip eventually starts if they're not dealt with. And that starts to look bad for the bosses who don't handle these situations right. And people eventually resent them holding the team back because they are a real drag on productivity, Tara?
Yeah. That learned helplessness starts to spread itself around when people realize, oh, you can get away with it. Then they start to, do the same things. You get that fatigue that happens from people just tired of managing all of this stress. It just
But
really does.
that fatigue, that manager fatigue is because they are not a good leader. That's a learning chance for this
That's
leader.
right.
You get one of these
Yeah.
people, this is your chance to hold them accountable, put the box around them, make them come back with a plan on how they're going to do it. Don't give them the answer. And make sure the other people aren't giving the answer. If they see them going to somebody else, you say, look, you got to come back to me with an answer. Don't go to anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. You start to see avoidance behaviors
Oh,
where
yeah.
people just try to avoid the person altogether. They don't want to be bothered with them. They really are trying to get away from the situation. And it really does erode the team morale.
Oh,
It's
it's
just,
terrible.
once you start to see that nobody is holding that person accountable, that they can just kind of get away with doing nothing and just dragging down productivity, they're exhausting everybody emotionally. Teammates are getting burned out. Once they start to see that, team morale just takes a nosedive from this kind of behavior. So you really do want to
Yeah.
nip it in the bud as quickly as possible.
You can have a little fun with these. Like I mentioned, that person who was not just really needy, but stupid. And we were all out at a bar one night drinking. And one of the guys brings up this individual, says, hey, what do you think about so and so? And another guy goes, nobody home. It was just hysterical. We were all cracking up, but they were just that type of person. You had to laugh eventually. They didn't make it,
Yeah.
you can't be that bad and make it. So, what is the
Yeah.
real issue with the needy, woe is me coworker? I think it's
Yeah.
not about having feelings. This is just they're needy, period.
Yeah. It's, everybody has feelings. This isn't about that. This is
Yeah.
about that person that is just constantly draining everybody around them. And they don't want to take responsibility. So replace, you've got to help them get to that place where they are emotionally dependent, where they're not, or independent. They're not
Independent, yeah.
depending on you for every single thing. You've got to get them to that place of ownership where they take responsibility, they stand and own it. They can stand on their own and be independent and not look to you for every single thing. It just frustrates the fire out of me. And I'm sure everybody else
Oh, they're
has to
really
deal with
frustrating.
that situation. It is just very frustrating to have that person depend on you for every step. You've got to tell them every little detail.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's unhealthy. Healthy teams do have really good helping behaviors, deep collaboration. They share knowledge, they share support, they back each other up, they have each other's back. But this is unhealthy. You don't want these people stuck, and you don't want them bringing down the team morale. We see all the collateral issues that come up. This is about holding them accountable, making them do their job, just like everybody
Yeah.
else. And if you support and play into this thing and you become the sponge, it's just going to get worse and worse. And it's really, really bad for the team overall. And so, look at this. What an exciting episode coming. Boy, I've seen this exact scene, happen in an office where somebody said, oh, hey, you're really stressed out. Let me help you relieve some of the stress. These people could be so bad. It's going to be a fun episode. So I think you should tune in. We're here every Wednesday. There's another episode, goes live 3:00. You can get us on the People Productive channel on LinkedIn. You can get us on People Productive on YouTube. You can get us on Facebook. We're on X. It's all over, plays, and a great episode. So episode 8, I think, is going to be a winner. There are just so many creepy, inappropriate people right there.
Yes, yes. We've all seen that situation, if we've not been in that situation before, where somebody is just inappropriate. They're either, looking at you inappropriately or touching you inappropriately. And it's just so creepy. It
Oh, it's
really is.
horrible.
So we're
Yeah.
going to dig into that next week. We'd love to have you join us. Give us some feedback on the shows. Let us know what you think, what are some of your experiences with coworkers like these. We
Yeah.
hope that you can join us next week and
Yeah.
subscribe to our channels. We'd love hearing your comments.
Yeah. And please take care. We'll see you then.
Yes, bye for now.